Hi again guys, so today's video is going to be about my story. Everyone with an eating disorder has a story, they have a time when they start dieting or they start restricting, and yeah, this is mine. So I started my first diet when I was 14 I think, or maybe 13. I picked up or happened to find a diet that my mum was following, which was like some sort of slimming club or diet club, and she had like this little diet sheet where she would have restricted calories on each day, for example, and for each meal. And at no point did my mum sort of say, oh, this is something you should do at all. I just have a memory of wanting to try that diet. And I think the amount of weight I wanted to lose was really minimal. I didn't even have a target or anything. I just remember for the first time being interested in my weight and what my weight was at the time. Before that, I have absolutely no recollection of what my weight was. No idea if it was stable or not, but I'm sure it was, or if it was going up or down, it was because my body needed that at the time. So I started dieting at about 14 and then gradually started to gain interest in different diets. I think I tried Slimming World when I was that age. Just generally trying to eat more healthily. And it started off quite tame, quite initially. There wasn't really any urgency behind it. There wasn't any real goals that I would set. It was just some sort of need inside me that sort of drove me to want to start dieting. And of course what I know now is that because I have more of an issue with wanting to restrict than wanting to overeat, whereas I thought for a long time that my issue was wanting to overeat. And so as I got older, it was definitely something that started to gain more severity. It started to pick up. It started to become a lot more prominent in my life. I have memories of probably when I was about 15, 16, constantly having something different to what my friends were eating, restricting certain food groups, picking out kidney beans from a chili my mum had made because I couldn't have kidney beans with mince for whatever reason. Then I think it gained even more traction and I started exercising quite intensely. I have memories of going to the gym, of using a cross trainer in our garage. Like in the evenings doing sit-ups, things like that. I think it was getting sort of quite a lot more pronounced, and quite severe in terms of the ways and methods that I was using to try and lose weight. And I remember at this point the yo-yoing probably started, as my body naturally would start to kind of rebel against this sudden restriction and calorie deficit. My weight would go probably up again and then I'd fight to get it back down, and so started this decade-long battle with my weight. And I also remember taking diet pills, going to a doctor, to get, I think there was speed-based pills or something. They had something bad in them, because my heart would feel all fluttery and my eyes would be all weird and big, and it wasn't good at all. Really unhealthy, but I just didn't care. All at that point is I just knew I wanted to be thinner. And what else? I tried a really intense starvation diet where I would only eat about 500 calories a day. That was pretty bad, but I lost a lot of weight, so in my mind that was really good. But I remember going on holiday to Greece with my girlfriends, and what should have been a really lovely holiday, which it was I just have these memories of being really aggressive and really grumpy and really snappy, and my behaviour just wasn't very nice during those weeks, and it was because I was so starving, hungry. You know, I was existing off, you know, diet soft drinks and vodka and salads, Greek salads, and I picked the cheese off the top, you know, so it's just absolutely crazy. Sorry, my nose is running, I have to blow my nose. So, yeah, Greece, starvation, yeah, and also I remember, at one point I was actually so desperate to eat, and my body was so desperate to rebound, that I would eat food and then chew it partially and then end up spitting it out into a tissue or into a kitchen towel, because I didn't want to eat the calories, but I just have this memory of doing that, and obviously that was pretty bad. And then I would start to make myself sick, you know, as the years went on, probably getting to 18 years old now, coming up to the time when I'd be leaving home and going to university. I started making myself sick. I would throw up after meals. I would wait a certain amount of time so that my body had digested the food enough. I even got to the point where I was throwing up fruit, you know, it was that fucked up. And that's kind of when I knew that I had a bit of a problem, and I had been struggling with this for a long time, and I think that's when it sort of really came to its head, when I started vomiting up fruit. So I went and spoke to my mum and had a chat with her, and, you know, she had known for a while that there was something wrong, you know, living in the same house and seeing behaviour and seeing me getting hysterical about eating certain types of food, or hovering in the background while she was cooking, and desperate for her to not put oil or anything like that in the food. She obviously knew that there was something wrong. But it took for me to kind of say, okay, I have a problem. But at that time I was very young, and the person I went to speak to was also very young and very inexperienced, I thought. And she basically did this questionnaire and got me to answer some questions, and it just felt like a box ticking exercise. It didn't feel like, oh, this woman knows what I need. But I think, to be fair, at that point I didn't know what I needed. It was just something I was suffering with at the time, and I was just suffering from the symptoms without really understanding why or what was happening. So at that point I went off to university, and as you can imagine, that, you know, it's quite a stressful time for a lot of people, young people leaving home for the first time, having to make new friends, things like that. You know, for someone who has an anxiety disorder, which is obviously what an eating disorder is underneath, that's a super stressful situation. So that really did cause my eating issues to exacerbate, and I just remember years of my weight yo-yoing and trying to diet and try just any dieting. It could be a Slim Fast, shake replacement, meal replacement diet. It could be Slimming World again. It could be a 500 calorie diet again. It could be fasting or anything like that. I just tried everything. Cabbage soup diet, tried that. I was exercising again quite intensely, going to the gym quite a lot at university. Taking recreational drugs at the time, you know, doing a lot of dancing and drug taking and things like that at university. And yeah, it was obviously a really difficult time. I mean, don't get me wrong, university was fantastic, I had a great time, but underneath there was this problem with my food. And I remember I went away to Thailand for a month, and I came back and I'd gained a stone, and I was just devastated, and I just remember the punishment, and the way I treated myself after that was just terrible, and I couldn't even go on holiday without gaining all this weight, and it was just insane. My body was so sensitive to eating any more than I was used to. And then when I moved to London after university, you know, it just continued really, and there was just this cycle of continued dieting. At that time though, I had begun to start to find information on eating disorders and a bit more about them and a bit more about the context of them and why we have them. And what I was always searching for, and my belief was always that I had a problem with overeating. So I would search for things like, how can I stop overeating? How can I stop binge eating and things like that? And secret eating, you know, I would go to my friends' cupboards and eat food from there because I wouldn't allow myself to buy any food, and I was so starving hungry at night that I would eat their food, and that felt really shameful. So because that was such a prominent thing, that I was overeating and trying to constantly get food, I thought that was what my problem was. So this led me on to reading books and online programs about emotional eating and that sort of area. So Josie Spinardi, she did a book and an online program and some YouTube channels, and Roger Gould wrote a book and did an online program. Michelle Morand has an online program, and these kind of all people that I really learnt about the context of why we do what we do, even though the coping mechanism that I had pinpointed was overeating, but actually it was restriction. I would learn that later, that my problem was actually restriction. But what they did was really gave me a great foundation for being self-aware, understanding the context of what was happening, the why I was feeling the way I was feeling, why I was feeling so out of control, managing stress, things like that. They were all really useful tools that I learnt from all these different sources. But I always felt like there was a missing piece of the puzzle, and of course the missing piece of the puzzle was eating and was food. I was very much still holding on and restricting, and at this time I was doing Zumba and exercising and cycling through London and going back to Slimming World and not understanding why, even though I was following the diet to a T, I was gaining weight easily. And the reason is because even though Slimming World is fat-free or whatever the hell the food is, it was calories that my body so desperately needed, and it was causing me to gain the weight, as would be appropriate. But at that time I didn't know why, and so I was just very frustrated. And I did the 5-2 diet as well, so fasting for 2 days and eating as whatever I wanted the other 2 days, and that worked for a while, but then that stopped, and I just got frustrated about why I couldn't lose any more weight. And I didn't even think that, God, I just put my body through so much that my poor body was trying to desperately hang on to the food that it could, and I just didn't get it. And then I started to, search a bit deeper, and I found the Mini Maud guidelines at the time, which is now the Homodynamic Recovery Method, and the calorie guidelines, and all the science behind set point weight theory from Gwyneth Allwyn's website. And then I tapped into a whole load of literature around real recovery, Tabitha Farrar, Follow the Intuition, Damn the Diets, even high carb veganism to an extent, because even though what they're eating, in my opinion, is not healthy and it's not a full diet, they learnt from Minnesota Starvation Experiment about why the body would have to gain weight after restriction and the body would blow out. So there was Saved by Sugar, I followed quite a lot. So she's a vegan, but she had to gain a lot of weight. And so my proper recovery journey started, being supported by all these people that are doing this seemed so fantastic, and it made sense as soon as I started reading and understanding and hearing about this method and literature about just letting the floodgates go, letting your body eat whatever it wants, making sure you get enough, resting, really appreciating what your body's been through, appreciating the journey you've been on. I've been dieting from the age of 14 until the age of 20, how long have I been in recovery now? 2.5 years, I'm 29, so 26 and a half, So it's over a decade, it's a long time. And yeah, it's just appreciating that the recovery process takes time because of where you've been, and you just need to appreciate that and try and be patient. And I know it's really hard because when I heard people say this, it was just like, oh, be patient, it will happen, you will gain the weight, but then you'll plateau and you will be the weight that you're naturally supposed to be without any interference. And if you gain too much, then your body will start losing weight. And that just sounded like, fantastic, I'll be done in a year. And it wasn't, 2.5 years in. I've been tapering for about 6 months now. Some of you might follow me on Instagram and you can sort of see pictures of me starting to notice how my shape is starting to change now, which is great. But yeah, it's a long process and there's a lot of damage to be undone. When I think about those hours of exercise on the cross trainer, and I think about those diet pills, and I think about the nights of starvation, and all I could think about was food, I was doing so much damage to my body that is what I had to undo. And I think that finally I've undone that damage now. My body is recovered, I am in remission, I have got a stable weight that is decreasing now because I overshot. I had to gain a lot of weight. Some of you who follow me can see that I've had to gain over 100 pounds. Not everyone will gain that much, it just depends on your body and where your body needs to go, and unfortunately no one can sort of tell you that this is what you're going to do and this is what you're going to be. But all I can say is just sort of keep reading, keep following people like the people I've mentioned. Trust your body though, and even if someone else is telling you this is what you need to do, if there's part of you that sort of thinks, well, maybe I should try this, as long as it's not restriction, and you're sort of following those guidelines that are set by the Homodynamic Recovery Method, then I'd say go for it. Just you need to have respect for the damage you've done, that has been done, not you, but the damage that has been done. And you need to trust that it's going to work out okay, and just write down your story if it helps, and look at where you've come from and look at how many years damage that has gone into your body, your poor body, and just think, well, is it reasonable to expect my body to just recover like that? No, it's not. It might take 1 year, it might take 5 years, it might take 7 years. And I know that's hard to think about and contemplate, but for over a decade of restriction and starvation, you owe it to your body to sort it out. So make sure you eat enough, rest enough. There's all sorts of coping tips and stress busting techniques that I can help you with, that I've learnt over the years. If you want to reach out to me on Instagram or something like that, or here, just comment and I can try and help. I can provide some sources of people that have been really helpful for me. And yeah, just keep going. We're going to get there, and just trust your body basically. Okay, bye.